No one remembers discussion of plot structure and subjects. Okay, let's quickly revisit it for 5 minutes, and then we will start discussion the play, right? So very quickly going back to Dhananjay, and I will give you this essay from Dhananjay, right? In Dashrup that he has, uh, which will be helpful for you. Okay, so let me do that. Can you see this screen? Yes, no? Yeah. So subject matter says Dhananjay is of two kinds. Vastu, right? It is called. One is principal subject and other is incidental subject. So principal is the main theme, main subject, and incidental subject. So there are two types, and it is called adhikarika vastu and prasangika vastu, right? And prasangika is a purpose of another person by means of which one's own purpose is incidentally furthered. That is how plot moves in Sanskrit theatre. That means somebody has some other problem or a goal which forwards the goal of the protagonist. Right? When it is long, it is called pataka. When it is short, it is called prakari. Okay. The plot consists of action, an action or karya, and has one of the three objects of human existence, that is artha, kama, and dharma, right? And because moksha cannot be the object of desire. Okay, so the cause for this action is bij, and at first it is just small, that's why it's called bija, and then it grows, right? It expands, and it is called bindu when it expands. The elements designated as bija and expansion, the so-called episode, pataka, and episodal incident, prakari, and danuma, that is karya or action, are declared as five elements of plot, that is artha prakriti. So theme is called vastu and plot is called artha prakriti. And five stage of action. So play begins, arambh, then there is an effort made by the protagonist, then there is a prospect of succeeding, praptasya, then certainty of success, then attainment of result. Effort is exertion, that is what you do, right? So, and there are five sandhis. Plot or artha prakriti has five sandhis, avasthas, right? Avastha is stages from one stage to another. So the first is mukha, then it goes on to pratimukha, then garbha, then avmarsha and upasamhriti or nirvahana, that is conclusion. The opening is origination of bija. So bij, the germ of action or the seed of action, is give rise to various rasa. So that is the structure of Sanskrit play. And characteristics of hero, right? Hira Lalita, Dhira, Udata. Udata means exalted, and vehement is Uddhata. Then hero as a lover, if he is captivated by another woman, the hero may act clever, Dakshina, deceitful or Drushta. We discussed that. Then companions of the hero are attendants, called Pitamarda, and very often it is Pita or somebody who is living off hero, maybe as it is called a parasite, right? And jester, who is for humor. And okay. Then you have discussion of rasa again, which we did in Bharat's Natya Shastra. So this is the plot line of Sanskrit theatre. So just like in Aristotle, you discuss beginning, middle, and the end, and complex plot and simple plot, right? This is the discussion on Sanskrit classical theatre plays. So plays were divided. Plays are this is the Sanskrit terminology, right? And if you remember in your first semester, I mentioned that very often criticism involves use of terminology, terms, specialized form of language. And that is why we studied glossary of literary terms. How many of you remember glossary of literary terms? कितने लोगों को याद है? Bhavya remembers, Stuti, Fiza, someone else, Maitreyi, Rushin, Divya, Via. So why did we study glossary? Does anyone remember? What was the explanation I gave for prescription of glossary?
It would introduce us to the elements of literature.
Right. And correct. What else? What was the reason we discussed glossary for 2 semesters?
So may I?
Yeah.
So you also said something about how a botanist would describe a plant. He would use certain terminology. So
Right.
similarly, glossary helps us better explain, better criticize, and
Right.
appreciate literature in a manner where we can discuss certain perspectives, we can discuss figurative language in a whole another dimension rather than just saying this is this is very nicely written, but being more ornate with our discussion and getting to know things on a deeper level, having the certain set of tools to dissect the work properly.
Right. So the vocabulary terminology equips you with different ways of making your discussion of literature more precise, more intellectually conceptualized. So as you say, it provides a toolkit, right, for analysis as well as appreciation of a literary text, right? And you use word ornate, something which I wouldn't use. So it's not meant for ornamentation, but it's meant for intellectual rigor. Now, all these terminologies are a sign of a specialized field of knowledge, right? So when a doctor is talking to another doctor, she uses a different terminology, right? Jargon, as it is called, because it provides more precision in discussion. So does lawyer talking to another lawyer. So student of literature is equipped with certain terms to make the understanding of literary text more precise and conceptualized, right? So what we have done till now is I have introduced you to Sanskrit terminology, right? And you are exposed to Western terminology for discussion of literature, right? Yes, no. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So introduction to Sanskrit terminology indicates something, is indicative of something. So what do you think does it indicate? Why do you have this elaborate terminology that I mentioned in Dhananjay, this one that we looked at? What does that indicate?
How Indian drama or how drama in Sanskrit is vastly different from the Western ideas.
Okay. Yes, it does indicate differences from the Western terminology, right? What else does it indicate? You are right. What else?
I think it also helps us to understand the history of that age. Like we do not know how the plays or how drama, the works, the novels, poetry was written in ancient India. So it gives us a brief history of that time. It also
Hmm.
introduces us to our, origin, to what we have as drama and literature of today.
Okay, the terminology indicates historic history of that period, you mean, and the ways in which Sanskrit drama was written in those days. Okay, what else? Yeah, anyone else wants to add?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah,
Sir,
loud.
it indicates the fact that the plot or the storyline of Indian drama is much more deeper, is much more wider as compared to that of Western drama, and it has many subplots or many sub stories which you won't generally find in Western plays, but you will find in Indian plays. Like if you take any play from Bhasa or from any other old writer, uh, for example, Bhasa's Urubhangam, we have a lot of small stories in it, and
Mm,
the whole incident which leads towards the end of Mahabharat. And it
mm,
also presents a different perspective. This play presents Duryodhan in a positive light. So
right.
there are a lot of subplots, and when we read Gita or something like that, we don't really have an idea about Duryodhan's relationship with his family or with his children. But in
Mm,
this play, we get to know that. So the Indian way explores the storyline in a much more deeper and much more precise manner.
okay, so what you are saying is that there is more depth in Sanskrit
Yes,
theatre
yes.
compared to Western theatre. Now the problem is how many Western plays have you read, and how many Sanskrit plays apart from Urubangam have you read to make such a statement? Think about it. I'm not saying you're wrong, but just think about this kind of generalizations that we make, right? That Western theater is not as deep and rich as Eastern or Sanskrit theater. But then it has to be backed up by your knowledge of both the traditions, right?
Yes, sir. So actually, I would like to clear myself a bit. What I meant to say was that the Indian system,
Hmm.
the description, the way it describes the plays, is
Mhm.
much more deeper and precise as compared to the Western system. The
Hmm.
descriptive pattern is much more deeper.
Okay. So the categories of description,
Yes, they
right,
are much more.
are far more. What kind of they are far more what? What will you say? And description of what?
the description of the story, the character, and in the light and the description of the characters in the light of the story as well as the protagonist. These are
Are much
much
more
more wider.
wider.
I mean, much more descriptive, much more precise.
Okay, okay. They are more precise.
Yes,
How
yes.
how do you measure that precision? इससे ये ज़्यादा precision है. I'm not trying to invalidate what you're saying. I'm just trying to make you think further from where you're already thinking, right? Which is a good thing. So I'm just trying to probe and take you further into your inquiry that you are making. So what do you think is the precision part? How do you know that this is more precise than
So we
yeah,
have
we'll come
more
to it. Yeah,
terminology.
more
We have more
terminology.
terminologies.
Okay, right. So it has got more terminology, and that's why probably it is more, lot of more thinking has gone into analysis of play, right? You have got more terminology of description, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Correct. Good. Very good. But what does this indicate? Very good. Dia, you want to add?
Yes, sir. I think that I don't know how to say it, but here we are focusing more on the plot than I think the characters. Like plot
So we
is
discussed
very
hero, but there are also elaborate discussions of heroines and Joker or clown and so on, and villain. So it's not that there is no discussion or about characterization.
no, sir. I meant that the plot is a very important part of.
Right. So plot is an important part of Sanskrit drama. But you know, all this terminology of analysis, does it indicate a tradition, tradition of learning about literature, which is developed, a field of knowledge, right? So when you are studying Western literary theories and criticism right from the beginning, it indicated a developed field of knowledge, right? So the glossary is an indication of developed field of knowledge. So likewise, can you say that in Sanskrit also you have an elaborate, historically developed field of knowledge, a tradition of learning which goes back to Bharat, but Dhananjay is 1000 years after Bharat. So for 1 millennia, there has been substantial thinking about literature and discussion about literature, which is critical and analytical. Can you say that? How many of you could say that there is a tradition of learning which is ancient and elaborate? Right? Knowledge tradition of knowledge about literature, which is almost 1000 or more years. Can you say that? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes, sir. I think we can say that.
There is that tradition. How many of you feel like Stuti, that there is this knowledge tradition which is elaborate and developed? Tia can say that. Bhavya, Isa, सिर्फ 2-4 लोग ही क्यों हाँ ना जवाब, बाकी लोग क्या कर रहे हैं? Okay, Bhavya. Six, seven people are responding. Others are asleep or not thinking, doing something else. So the point that I'm trying to make, that literary criticism or study of literature as a field, right, which was, yeah, even Harshita thinks so, as a field of learning and knowledge. And when you came to do your bachelor's from in English studies, English literature, I said that the purpose of bachelor's program is to introduce you to the whole wide discipline of English studies, right? Study of literature and various aspects of it. So you study criticism, you study history of literature, you study various genres, fiction, non-fiction, various periods of uh, uh, English literature. So you are aware, I'm not saying all of you are great scholars or not great scholars. What I'm saying that all of you are aware that there is an elaborate and well-developed field of knowledge or a discipline called English studies, right? And you were introduced to that, various aspects. So now when we start looking at Sanskrit literature and learning, can you say that there is an elaborately developed tradition of learning and knowledge, where there were wide-ranging discussion about literature and what literature is and what it is not, and what is good literature, what is bad literature, how should it be composed, what is the function of literature in society, and so on and so forth, right? So there is an elaborate tradition of knowledge. There is a knowledge tradition. And Bharat's Natya Shastra is one of the first Shastra texts, right, which tries to create a systematized body of knowledge about Natya, right, and it goes back to 2 millennia almost. And then you have the entire tradition with Bhamaha, Kuntak, Anandvardhana, Abhinav, and then Dhananjay, whom we discussed, followed by people like Raja Bhoj, right, Mammat, Dandi, and Jagannath, right? These are some of the people who have written extensively about literature for almost 2000 years, right? So there is a 2000-year-old tradition of learning about literature that is available in Sanskrit, right? So the reason why you have this complex terminology indicates the elaborate and long tradition of thinking and discussion about literature, critical thinking and discussion about literature, right? That is the point I am trying to make. That is what it reveals and indicates. Clear? So what I will do, I will send you this Dhananjay's piece so that you can take a look. Not prescribed, but for your own understanding. Okay. So now we turn to Vishakadatta and Mudra Rakshas. And again, going back to your core one, you can see that I always go back to core one. One of the things that I started out with is that you are coming here not to study literature, but regarding why do you come here? What did I say? Does anyone remember? Not to study literature. So BA is not
to study literature.
how to study
How
literature.
to study.
Right now, if you transfer that to our syllabus, then how will you rephrase it? What are you studying? If I ask you, what are you studying in core 10? What will you answer?
How to study translations and Indian writing in English.
How to study Indian literature in English and in English translation. Very good. So you come here not to study these texts, but learn how to study, right? And very interestingly, it's not very different from what we did in our core 1 paper. What are the things that we look for in literature? Does anyone remember? What are the things that we studied in how to study? कैसे पढ़े? तो क्या क्या चीजें हमने पढ़ी थी? याद आ रहा है किसी को? पहले सेमेस्टर में?
Yes, sir.
बोलो क्या क्या?
So first thing was about the work itself, or the title. Then
Right.
comes the author. Then comes the content matter, and then comes the place in history where it was set in. So, for example, Harun and the Sea of Stories, you began by
Right.
explaining the essence behind the title, then Salman
Right.
Rushdie and how he felt, and then later on when it was written, and about a little
Right.
bit about that time and the context in which it was written, like it was
Very good.
fiction.
Very good.
These-
So we started looking at, so how do you study Indian writing in English translation? Is you start reading and thinking about the title and the content and the author of the text that you are studying. And then we also look very importantly at the historical context in which it was written. Right? So we looked at the text and its context. Dono. Analysis of text and its context. Right? That is what we did. And when it came to poetry and drama, what did we do? Apart from Harun and the Sea of Stories.
So, could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So you gave an example of Harun and the Sea of Stories, but we also studied poems and play. Right? So what do you remember from that? How do you study poems and plays?
So, yes, in poems, especially in the Western poems written in the Western, and simply written in English, certain things such as rhyme, meter, figurative language, metaphors, personification, all those types of things, the form of the poem, if there is a rhyming scheme or not, these things were also to be taken into consideration. And
Right.
the study of the play was a bit similar to that of the novel, that you had to go through the content and the title as well. So, like, in the meantime, we've only read one Shakespeare play, Julius Caesar. So,
Right.
like, we employed the similar technique. So that was as
Right.
far as the first semester was concerned.
Right. So analysis of plays, poems, and what else? Novels. Right. Almost similar because we analyze the text and the context in both, in all the genres, all the form. Right. We analyze whether it's a poem or a play or a novel. These are 3 different genres, right? And we analyze more or less similar things, right? You look at figurative language, right? Rhymes and so on. And then what was similar in analysis of novel and the play?
So the title, the author's background, these things are quite similar. Like
Right.
looking
And
into
what
the
else? Apart from our importance given to the title, we tried to figure out what title would suggest, right? And it would suggest multiple things very often, right? And then we also looked at author's background information. And then when it came to content, what did we do? In play and in novel.
So we looked at the plot, we looked at the setting, we looked at how the story was moving forward, and we made a distinction between plot and synopsis. I think there was also there, and how
Mhm.
plot and how study of plot is how two events are connected rather than just a linear motion of the things that are happening in the story. So that was
Very
another
good.
thing that was similar in these two.
Very good. How many of you remember all these discussions 3 years ago? Apart from Bhavya, Stuti remembers this. Maitreyi remembers this. Dharma remembers. Darshita also remembers. Ayushi. So, okay. Only 5 people remember. Others don't remember what happened before the flood. Yeah, Bhavya remembers. 5-7 लोग छोड़ के किसी को याद नहीं आ रहा है जो 5000 साल पहले हमने डिस्कस किया था. So only 5 people, 5-10 people remember. Others don't. Does Corona result in loss of memory? I don't know. ऐसा कुछ होता नहीं है ना कोरोना में. So apart from 5-6 people, if Fiza is saying something, some of us were in other classes. Okay, okay, right. So if you remember the method that we used for study was that we looked at basically 2 or 3 things, right? You looked at literary work as a narrative, right? The story it tells, whether it's a poem or a play or a novel. It is a story basically. It's a narrative, right? So when you say it's narrative, it involves characters and what happened to them, right? So that is similar in all across genres. Then we looked at the language. We looked at figurative language. We looked at how language is used in narration, right? And thirdly, we saw the historical context of narrative and the language. So basically, we are looking at some of the common elements in the study of literature. It involves thinking about 3 dimensions of literature. One is narrative, and when we say narrative, it involves plot structure, characters, setting, and so on and so forth that we are mentioned. The second dimension is language. How is language used to narrate? Right? And the third dimension is social and historical context. So whatever you study, it may be this play or whatever else, you are thinking, analyzing, reflecting upon these 3 dimensions mainly of the text, right? And these are interconnected dimensions. It is without language, you can't have story, right? At the same time, the language has a story to it. Now, story and language cannot make sense outside their context, right? So all these 3 dimensions are interconnected to each other, right? So how do we study literature? We study these 3 aspects, 3 dimensions of it. First, you look at story. So story will be about people, about what happened to them, and that will reveal also its theme. Yes. So there was a poem called My Last Duchess. Does anyone remember?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So it's a story, right? So you look at it first as a story, then it has characters. So what were the characters in the story, My Last Duchess?
So it was the Duke, the person who was married to this beautiful woman, who is presumably murdered, and the other one is he's sort of a representative, a connoisseur. I really do not know exactly what was the title, but someone who's come there to ask if he is willing to marry some other lady of a good house or
Right.
in
So
a
these are the
similar.
characters, the Duchess, Duke, and the emissary or somebody who has come to who the Duke is speaking, right? And so That is about characters. Then you ask about what is the theme of that poem. What is it about? What is it about? What is the poem about? No one remembers from that poem?
So I
Misogyny.
Yeah, Bhavya, go ahead. दोनों भव्य है. एक हैप्पी भव्य और एक सैड भव्य.
Yeah. So, sir, it reflects misogyny. There is always an
Misogyny.
undertone.
Okay,
And
supremacy.
misogyny in a very aggressive manner, not just
Aggressive.
an undertone.
It is about ego and
Yes.
cruelty, right? Of a person who belongs to high status in society, and what can it lead to, right? So the poem is about that. So that is one of the themes of the poem, right? And then you ask about what happened. उसमें क्या होता है? So you are asking question about story, right? So we are discussing its narrative component, which includes characters, themes, and events. Narrative में आते हैं तो क्या होता है उसमें? What happens in that poem?
He's narrating
Sir.
what happened with his wife.
Who is narrating?
The speaker,
The speaker
Duke.
कौन है यहाँ पे?
the Duke.
The Duke. And what happens? कहानी क्या है इसमें? It is about egotism and cruelty. उसमें होता क्या है?
So he is like taking the emissary through his house, showing him various art pieces and works. How there was this particular Poseidon sculpture where he was taming the seahorse, which reflects on his attitudes as well. That was one of those things that was there, and it just showcased and highlighted his ego. And we do not really hear from the emissary anything. It's largely just
He is
him
silent.
speaking. Yes,
Right.
it's very much similar to that poem by Nissim Ezekiel, The Professor. If you've read it, probably you'd know what I'm talking about. So it's like these narrative techniques are also there. So these are the things that
Right. So what is
highlighted
happening
that poem
is that
especially.
Duke is showing this man around, right? That is happening. But apart from showing these things around, what else is happening? What else is happening?
The Duchess does not understand how to live a posh life. She was like a commoner, and he did not like seeing her behave in her commoner ways, or laugh or smile at other people.
So what is happening is he's telling about his previous wife, right? To a person who has brought a marriage proposal, right? And he's talking about her faults, right? And what are her faults? That she was naive and she was not conscious of her high status, which he had so generously given to her. She was probably from lower class, and he had so generously given to her, which she is not acknowledging, nor she is conscious, and she would smile and laugh at anyone, right? And that's why he gave orders and the smile stopped forever. ऐसा कुछ याद है? याद है आ रहा है नहीं आ रहा है?
Yes.
Thoda thoda.
So in a flashback in the story, as part of the flashback, you are revealed that these are the things that are happening. जो हो चुका है उसका flashback. So narrative consists of flashback as well, right? A point of view of the Duke and a flashback, right? And is there any setting to it?
So the Duke's palace.
Right. Duke's palace, that is the place. But is there any time, context of time? Which time period does it belong to?
The historical time period or the time that's the poem and the conversation is happening in.
So which time is that? Victorian period. The poem is written in Victorian period, Harshita. But the poem का जो setting है उसका period अलग है. I don't know if you noticed that.
So it may be happening in the evening because when the emissary is leaving.
I'm asking you historical period, not the. कितने बजे ऐसे नहीं पूछ रहा हूँ. Harshita suggested Victorian period. Victorian period was the time in which Browning wrote that poem. But the poem is set in some other historical period.
Sir, Frapp and all has been mentioned, the painter. So, I'll just search up when when this painter was alive. So it's in that time period.
So roughly it is during the Renaissance or post-Renaissance period in Italy. Right? The poem is written in Victorian period, but it is about Renaissance. Because dukes and duchess usi time mein the. So there is a historical setting to the story. There is a point of view, characterizations. There are motivations as well. Mid 16th century, right? Elizabethan period maybe. Renaissance period. So do you think there is any motive to the reason why the Duke is giving that flashback of his previous wife and he's showing that emissary around? Is there any motive, intention?
Yeah, to tell him that whoever the new wife would be, he wants the new wife to be, up to his standards. And how the last Duchess failed him, quote unquote, failed him. So yeah.
So he is almost giving a warning.
Right?
And what does that reveal about Duke's character?
Or his aggressive nature and his desire to control his wife.
Egotism,
so it's almost
controlling, dominating nature, right?
Sir, it's almost a threat enveloped in a warning.
It's a threat, it's threat almost, right? So you can see that when you're looking at a poem as a story, you ask these questions about who is speaking to whom, what is happening, then how is it plotted? Is there a flashback? And then you also ask why questions about what the characters are doing, right? Which are about their motives. And these questions reveal the characters and also the themes of the play, of the poem, or the story, right? Na. And point of view being very important, right? So analysis of narrative involves these things: point of view, characterization, events, incidents that are happening, setting, and so on. Right? So these are the aspects, elements of narrative. Right? And then you also look at its language. So what do you think about the language? What kind of language do you find in the poem? Does anyone remember something?
a first person point of view.
And what kind of language?
Like the tone
Tone of
or the rhyme
vocabulary.
or
Like he says, she smiled, right? But not at my gifts. But she
jealous.
smiled at anyone. Language is jealous? What
Like
kind of language?
somewhere we can see jealousy also sprouting
But
through the
language
tone.
कैसे है? What does language reveal? How is language
Victorian
used?
English.
Huh?
Victorian English.
That is the historical period of language. But I'm asking, language कैसे use की गई है? How is language used?
In form of a monologue.
Monologue, okay. And what else? Monologue तो है ही, पर language कैसे use की है?
So in the poem, the poet is suggesting things by using the Duke in a certain manner. Like the way he talks, he's talking to the emissary in a certain way, and he's right in his own way. But to the reader, it appears that he is that cruel, evil man who's not a really nice person. So
language reveals the character.
Yes, sir.
And there is an irony. Irony is when you say one thing and mean something else. So when he says that she smiled and smiled, but too much, right? And there was a red spot of joy on her cheek when she saw somebody, maybe servant, offer her flowers or something like that. And then he gave orders and she stopped smiling. So he is not saying that she was evil and I killed her. He is just hinting it indirectly. And that hint is given because he is warning the emissary, right? So you can see the layers of irony, right? In the poem, there are levels of irony. एक तो वो क्या कह रहा है और उसका मतलब क्या निकल रहा है, वो एक नहीं है. He says, look at this sculpture, Poseidon, Neptune, right? Controlling the seahorse with his fin. Now, he is just showing it, but there is a kind of threat that I am like that, I will control my wife in that way, which Klaus of Inbergs has made for me, right? So he's just talking, but he's implying something else. That is one level of irony. And the other level of irony is that this implication of what he did to his wife is a threat to that person, right? And the third level of irony is that the speaker of the poem and the poet are not the same. So even if the poet does not share the speaker's views, he is revealing them, right? So speaker and the audience and the readers are very often on the side of Duchess, right? How many of you were on the side of Duchess? Had sympathy for Duchess rather than Duke? Right. And this is itself a form of irony, right? And as somebody said, it's a dramatic monologue, which reveals the genre of the poem, right? The situation and the speaker, the fictive speaker speaking in a dramatic situation is called a dramatic monologue. Now, why I am repeating, why did I teach you almost the first poem again, is that we are studying how to unpack literary works. We are trying to study how to open up literary text. We studied it at all three dimensions of the text, right? So this is how you study a poem. Make sense? I ask you then,
Yes,
what
sir.
is why is it my last Duchess, not my Duchess? और माई डेड डचेस ऐसे क्यों नहीं कहा, माई लास्ट डचेस। वो ऐसे कह रहा है कि वो पिछली वाली थी ना, वो ऐसी थी। बेसिकली इफ यू ट्रांसलेट इट इनटू हिंदी, colloquial Hindi, right? So it's a thread. So these are the things. At the same time, you like the poem. How many of you like this poem? And why did you like it? Ayushi, why did you like this poem?
So for me, one reason was that I really enjoyed the rhyme scheme, and I really liked also how the poem, how we keep finding out more stuff. Like at first, it's just we I didn't expect what happened at the end. I didn't expect it, and even when I had read it by myself, I hadn't understood it that well. And then when we discussed it in class, I was just like, whoa, what? So that's why I really liked
Right.
it.
So when you unpacked it, opened it, तो अंदर से काफी चीजें निकली जो पहले आपने सोची
Yeah,
नहीं थी. Right?
exactly.
So there were levels of meanings, right? Hidden, which you discovered. And you can see it's not a romantic poem. It's not about a breakup bhi nahi hai, right? It's about cruelty and egoticism, right? And still you liked it, है ना? Dharma says it has this dark tone. Maitreyi says that it has this murder. I don't think murder is the reason why we like that poem. It is suggested murder, right? Because it suggests so many things at so many level, and which are, yes, which you discover, right? So it involves creativity on the part of the reader to discover hidden meanings, suggested meanings of the text, right? And there is a term for this kind of meaning that literature creates, given by Anand Vardhana and his student called Abhinav Gupta. And this meaning which you like, literary meaning, is called dhvani. Right? Dhvani is the implied aesthetic meaning of the poem. You like the poem. It's not about, there is nothing pleasant about that poem, right? Is there anything pleasant? There is nothing pleasant, right? And still you like this poem. Ah, na.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So,
sir.
the cruelty and egoticism of the Duke, right, and your sympathy for the Duchess in contrast to the Duke. Look at the characterizations, right? They are in contrast. Yeah. Created this, revealed this meaning indirectly, not directly. If poet has said, look, this Duke is a very bad guy, तो उतना मजा नहीं आता, है ना? हाँ ना.
And वो ड्यूक के ही थ्रू उसने ड्यूक की faults दिखाई.
Reveal-
Like
And
it was
this
not even like any other character talking about
plus
it.
these faults are you can connect to those faults, है ना? हाँ ना.
So
You may have
we can.
experienced these people, this kind of thing. It connects to your life. Yeah, go ahead.
So we can also, like you said, the author uses the Duke, and like the Duke and the author are not the same. So that's why the contradiction in the views come, and the readers are made aware of his shortcomings, and all that he says is quite widely understood. And we also did another poem in that very semester, and that was by Marlowe and Andrew Marlowe. Not Marlowe,
Andrew
Andrew
Marvell.
Marvel.
Yes.
Yes, and in that poem, he's the author, he's the poet as well as the person in the poem. So his ulterior motives are quite openly visible, but they are not really criticized by like that because he's the one writing it himself. Like
Probably the
that's also
speaker
something.
and the speaker and the poet are almost similar, right? In Marvel,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
right? So, but the thing that I'm telling you is that there is certain form of attraction that Duke creates, in spite of the fact he is an obnoxious character. You wouldn't like to meet him, right? But at the same time, he holds your attention. Do you find similar things?
Yes,
You
sir.
have certain attraction, yes, no?
Uh, Attractions in his tact, actually, with the tact that he's using to convey everything, and the undertone of it is very um, you know
Right,
fascinating.
right. So Sanskrit poeticians very often make distinction between levels of meaning, right? They call it Shabda Shakti. It has got one is called Abhida, which means denotative simple meaning, right? Look at this painting. This painting is of my wife. Now that is denotative meaning, right? But it also suggests something. That denotative meaning के पश्चात भी कुछ रह जाता है, right? So that is called uh, lakshana, right? And then it suggests a threat. So there are multiple levels. So that is called Vyanjana. Vyanjana is the ironical, suggested, indirect meaning of a literary text. And that is what all the languages have. All languages operate at these three levels: Abhida, Lakshana, and Vyanjana. And the examples that they give is like this: Gangayam Ghosh, or the hut is on the river Ganges. Now, Abhida says that this hut is on the river now, which is not possible, right? झोपड़ी कैसे बन सकती है नदी के ऊपर? So there is a kind of ungrammaticality at the literal level. So you have to interpret it metaphorically, right? So what he says that Gangayam Ghosh, or the hut is on the banks of the river, is what is being said. That is the lakshyartha of the poem. It doesn't mean that hut is built on the river. It means hut is built on the banks of the river. Clear? So when you say my home is on Narmada, that doesn't mean you build your home or your building on the river. It means it's on the bank of the river. So the literal meaning is blocked. It doesn't make sense. So you give rise to another meaning, which is called lakshana. It means that you have your flat near the river or the sea. When you say I have समंदर पे मेरा घर है, so it doesn't mean कि दरिया के ऊपर आपका घर है. So at literal level it makes no sense. Abhida, it doesn't make any sense. So it means समंदर के पास में आपका घर है, right? But in literature there is also very often, even in our everyday conversation, there is a third level, right? Maybe the speaker is indicating it to his beloved or his lover that my home, this is where I live. Maybe that girl is telling the boy, वहाँ पे मैं रहती हूँ, right? And that is lakshana. Clear? I'm sorry, Vyanjana. So Abhida, Lakshana, or Vyanjana. These are the three levels of language use which Sanskrit poeticians and grammarians talk about. Now, when Vyanjana is used for aesthetic purpose, it becomes Dhwani. because Vyanjana is used in everyday life as well, right? You may want to hint somebody कि मैं वहां पे रहता हूँ, आके मिलो, मुझे इतना पैसे दे दो. ऐसे जरूरी नहीं है कि it may have an erotic connotation. It may have something else. मैं फतेहगंज रहता हूँ, right? So it may indicate that you come and meet me, there we can sort it out. There may be a deal. So that is Vyanjana. But when Vyanjana is used in literature for aesthetic meaning, it becomes Dhwani, Vanya, right? And that is what Sanskrit poeticians of 8th century, especially Kashmiri thinkers like Anandavardhan and his student Abhinav Gupta talks about. So is the concept of Abhida, Lakshana, Vyanjana and Dhwani clear? Any question about that? अब सबको समझ में आ गया या नहीं समझ में आया? Please ask me if you have not understood something. How many of you understood what I said and how many of you did not? Raise your hands. How many of you understood? The distinction between Abhida, Lakshana and Vyanjana. Bhavya understood. एक को ही समझ में आया, बाकी के ओके, कितने लोगों को समझ में नहीं आया? I didn't understand. Yeah, so what is it that you did not understand, Harshita? What is it that I should repeat? I will repeat, but tell me what. Maitreyi, did you understand? You raised your hand, I think. Or you did not understand? Okay. Okay, who will repeat for me the distinction between Abhida, Lakshana and Vyanjana? Bhavya, do you want to try? Can you explain it to her?
So I can try. I just need a little bit more context. So you said
No, try. It doesn't mean that you have to be perfect. You can just,
okay.
I can always correct it. Yeah.
So, sir, Vyanjana is something that is used in our day-to-day lives. Like if we are saying something, like you said that Fatehganj example. So someone could just be staying in Fatehganj and be there for a while. So like, yeah, मैं Fatehganj रहता हूँ. But in a literary and aesthetic sense, when you take it in that right, the meaning becomes more about what it might suggest. So, like Fatehganj might not just be a place where you stay, but it might have some other value to you. Maybe something like somebody you like stays there, or it's a place where you hang out with your friends. So it's like a home to you, but it's not your home like it's not the building where you live, but that place in itself, that market, that area is like home to you. So this is like Vyanjana and the distinction between Vyanjana and I'm
So what is
forgetting that
Abhida?
other word.
Yeah, yeah. So what is Abhida?
Sir, I really do not remember that part.
Okay.
Like,
Abhida
it's
is the
confusing
basic
me.
denotative meaning, right? When you
Yes.
say, I live on Narmada, right? Or I live on the street, I live on the next street. Now you don't live on the street, right? So Abhida says you live on the next street, but it's not literally true. आप रास्ते पे नहीं रहते हो, है ना? तो उसका मतलब निकलता है दूसरे लेवल पर, जिसे लक्षणा कहते हैं. लक्षणा मीन्स, it means that your home is on the street, near the street. When you say I live in the next street, it means your home is in the next street. So the fact that your home is in the next street is lakshana. Abhida is what you say. I live on the next street, right? But it may suggest, say for example, a veiled invitation. It may mean मैं यहीं पे रहता हूँ, आ जाओ हमारे घर पे, right? So that is vyanjana. Is that clear? Should I repeat? When you say I live, मैं यहीं पे रहता हूँ, ऐसे आप कहते हो कभी? तो ऐसा नहीं कि आप वहीं पे रहते हो, रास्ते पे नहीं रहते ना, राइट? मैं यहीं पे रहता हूँ का मतलब है वो अभिधा है. मगर मैं यहीं पे रहता हूँ उसका मतलब है मेरा घर यहीं करीब है. दैट इज लक्षणा. पर तीसरा लेवल क्या है? आप मेरे घर आइए. दैट इज व्यंजना.
And
Right?
sir, all can be taken from one sentence only.
One
यहीं पे
sentence.
रहता हूँ.
Yeah. And when Vyanjana has a literary or aesthetic dimension, it is revealing the character of somebody, right? Or motive, hidden motive in a poem, say for example, right? So when Duke is showing that painting to the emissary, right? He is not really showing that painting to the emissary. He is suggesting something. So suggestion, as it operates in a literary text, is called dhvani. Does that make any sense for you? This is Indian Aesthetics 101.
So is there some, like that book you gave us, Indian criticism, Indian
Right.
literary criticism, is this also
Right.
mentioned in there? Because I
Yes.
think
Yes.
certain examples would be needed to better understand it, especially literary examples.
Right.
Because
So when
it's
the Duke says that this is the sculpture made by Claude of Innsbruck, in which this Poseidon is taming that seahorse, right? And Abhida, it means वो सिर्फ दिखा रहा है, देखो ये है ना sculpture मुझे gift में मिला है. This is Abhida. But Lakshana is something else. He is doing something else, right? He is suggesting something else. And it is ironical. उसमें व्यंजना है. व्यंजना क्या है? व्यंजना व्यंजार व्यंगार्थ है, व्यंग है. व्यंग का मतलब है आयरनी, राइट? व्यंग ये है कि he is saying I will control my wife in that way, right? So that is vyangarth of that line, last two lines of my last touches. और ध्वनि क्या है? That it appeals to you aesthetically, right? You like that, in spite of the fact that it's very unpleasant. There is some pleasure, rasa, that you get from the poem, though it is about cruelty and egoticism. You won't like cruelty and egoticism in your real life, but in the poem you admire it. There is some pleasure that it gives. There is a rasa that it evokes, right? So rasa is communicated through dhvani, according to Abhinav Gupta. Right? So when somebody says that you may not like that guy, but you like the poem, ऐसे हो सकता है? We don't like you, but we like the poem. How many of you felt like that? Right? But you like the poem, though you didn't like the Duke. Right? So this liking is rasa. I hope you get that. And rasa, which is produced through dhvani, according to Abhinav Gupta. Yes, Bhavya, what do you want to say? Yeah, go ahead.
So in a literary work, like other works as well, like in Merchant of Venice. The Shylock's character is shown inherently evil, but when
Right.
we get to hear his part, like the things that he's faced by just being a Jew, we sort of empathize with him. While in the end, he gets the justice is served, and he is also like he loses his wealth and all that happens. But still, there is a little likeness towards that character also, even though he's not really good. So there is
But
a
what I'm
certain
saying is not about liking a character or not. What I'm saying is that text, you like the text or the work, and that response to that aesthetic work of art is called rasa, and that is achieved through dhwani about the
and
suggested meaning of the text.
so, sir, if someone likes Mein Kampf, can we like say the same thing?
Pardon?
The Hitler's autobiography, if someone likes that, so can we say the same thing for that as well?
Mm, it depends upon, do you get any aesthetic relish out of that? That is the question. Not whether you like, I think you are confusing liking people. I'm not talking about whether you like people or not. You may not like Duke, right? I'm talking about you like the text. I hope you get that. Text, the way it is
Yes, sir,
written.
I got it.
So I think Hitler's autobiography does not have that any aesthetic effect. I have not read it, but I don't think he is a great writer. And that is where you admire Robert Browning, है ना? His craft. Aesthetic pleasure जो cause करता है उसे ध्वनि कहते हैं. व्यंगार तो हम everyday life में भी करते हैं, right? So, Abhida, Lakshana or Vyanjana is there in all our discussions. But when Vyanjana is used for aesthetic purpose, it becomes Dhvani, right? When it is used to evoke rasa, it becomes Dhvani. Yeah, Dharma, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So I thought of कि आपने जब बोला कि would you like that person if you know in your life. So I think that is the right measure to find out whether if someone likes Mein Kampf, is it that for on मतलब उसका बेस एस्थेटिक प्लेजर है कि you know personal inclination है. Like for example,
Right.
would you like Hitler as the leader of your country? So if no, and but if you still like Mein Kampf, so that is because of aesthetic pleasure.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's about fictionality. Means Hitler से confusion क्या होता है? He was a historical figure, but Duke जैसा कोई था नहीं. I hope you get that. We are discussing fictional characters.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So aesthetic effect, according to Abhinav Gupta, is a product of literary or artistic suggestiveness, which is different from everyday suggestiveness. Everyday व्यंग होता है, उससे अलग literary व्यंग होता है, because it produces rasa. So you can see very highly elaborately developed literary theory at work in Sanskrit, right? About literary meaning, right? And people like Kuntaka would say that what produces rasa is vakrokti or indirect speech, crooked speech, right? For example, you talk about what this bronze se bana hua sculpture hai, but you are actually saying that I am very dominant person. I don't like people not submitting to me. Women should submit to my whims and fancies, right? So it is vakrokti, right? So we looked at plot, but today we also looked at literary language, right? And figures of speech are called alankara in Sanskrit. There are various alankar, abhushan. which produce rasa. So Kuntak and Bhamaha would say that what brings about aesthetic impact is language, while Abhinav Gupta would say that aesthetic impact is produced by dhvani, right? Suggested meaning in artistic text. Anyone has to say anything before we stop for today? What is your response to today's discussion? Who would like to say something?
Sir, we learned a lot many Sanskrit words which are already hard to remember, and their explanations are like even harder. So today was like filled with a lot of brand new information. It's gonna need
Okay.
some revision
But
in
what kind
particular.
of how do you react to that information? What did you feel about it?
A little confused. That's my
Confused.
basic reaction
Good,
now.
good. Now, what you have to do is you have to find out what are the things that escaped you or did not understand or you got confused. Which are those places which confuse you? You have to identify that so that we can sort it out in discussions, right?
Yes.
That is your task.
Yes.
Very. Yeah, Bhavya.
So, like, my first reaction is that whatever we have learned about literature is not really translating into Indian writing in English and translations of those texts entirely. A little bit of the same is there, but you cannot just put the same set of knowledge in the position because of the cultural differences. And again, this is quite an irony on me, given that we are studying our own literature, yet it's more difficult than the foreigners. Apart from that, I think we just need a little bit more practice with the text to get a firm grasp on these concepts. And Indian literary critical history, that book that you suggested, I think that at least if somebody wants to get a good knowledge, they'll have to go through major parts of it once or twice minimum before starting Mudra Rakshasa or something of that sort, because it's not really that easy a job. It's completely new. It's like first semester of English literature all over again, but in a whole different context.
Very good. So you realize the differences in knowledge traditions and poetics. At Sanskrit, poetics works on a different kind of conceptual apparatus, right? Terminology. Look at the discussion of plot or language or literary meaning that we had today, and look at the kind of literary meaning and plot and character wala discussion that you had in the English studies paper, regular English studies paper, right? So there is a historical difference between the terminologies and knowledge traditions to which Indian or I'm not saying Indian, Sanskrit literary texts belong, right? So we have to understand those terminologies, poetics and apparatuses, conceptual apparatuses for analysis and understanding of Sanskrit literary texts, right? So this difference is what is creating a kind of difficulty, that you cannot transfer those things simply over here. You cannot read Mudra Rakshas as you read My Last Duchess to his poem Mistress, है ना? तो ये समझने के लिए हमको एक अलग परंपरा का ज्ञान होना आवश्यक है, और that is what creates. So it has to be, when we try to situate it in historical context, that is what happens, right? Okay, so we have overshot our time, and I will send out certain text for you which will summarize all the discussions that we had. So you need not feel, so you have something to read up as well, right? ऐसे नहीं होगा कि सिर्फ, so you can use that to clarify, like I think Jai had certain confusion, but the thing that I'm sending across may help you to sort those out. right? And many of you. So we will start unpacking and analyzing the text from the next class, right? And I introduced, so I am sending you a small glossary of Sanskrit literary terms for your reading, right? So we stop here for today. So please take care.